Okay, just touching on this subject one final time. Um, the whole issue that's going on with the riots around the country and protests around the country, rallies, things like that, um, starting to become a very heated issue, being debated online, very talked about, and you've got two groups of people. You got a group of people who say that, okay, what are you doing? You're not really accomplishing anything and you shouldn't be doing this. Why are you destroying stuff? And you've got another group of people who are saying that, excuse you, we're tired of getting walked all over. And this is mostly coming from, of course, people of color who are falling victim in a lot of cases to things like, you know, profiling, have been victims in the past of stop and frisk, in a big way targeted by the crime bill back in the 90s. And they said that, we're tired of this. We're not going to keep standing for it. And we're going to make a statement here and we're going to make sure people pay attention to us. And it seems like most everyone is saying there's no middle ground there. Uh, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks who would say that I'm not the one to talk about this because I'm a little too, pale to be speaking on the matter. But at the end of the day, color aside, we can use common sense and we can break things down. First of all, I will just say this. Do I think that it has to come to burning things down in complete riot and revolution in a physical manner? I don't think that is necessary. Now, a lot of people are going to hear that and immediately probably turn this video off and say, oh, well, screw you. You don't put up with it. You're white. You've got white privilege. Why would you know what we go through? Now, if you're still here, hear me out, okay? Know your enemy. Who was responsible for passing that crime bill back in the 90s? Democrats and Republicans. Who sent young black men and women off to die in wars, even like the Vietnam War? Something that my man right here, Muhammad Ali, took a stand against, right? Something it was brought up in a video the other night on Big Talk Little Talk. Okay? Who was responsible for that? Democrats and Republicans. Okay? So they're responsible for sending you off to war. They're responsible for passing crime bills that lock a lot of the people of color up in this country. Responsible for stop and frisk. And that's just the Republicans and Democrats. How about the news media that pushes for the wars because they're being, bought by big pharma? Big pharma and the military industrial complex. That's their sponsors, right? Of course, those same people also fund the Democrats and the Republicans who keep ignoring your communities time after time after time. So you're getting shafted all the way around by Democrats and Republicans. The mainstream media is being bought off by the same people who buy the Democrats and the Republicans off. Therefore, who you're getting your news from is shafting you as well. And the way they cover stories really just divides races farther and farther and farther apart. For example, you tune in to Don Lemon's show and listen to what Don Lemon has to say. And he's going to, use identity politics and race baiting and just make it out to be this whole thing about white people versus black people. That's what you're going to walk away from, is that the white people have white privilege. The black people are, alienated completely by society. And he's not going to address what the real reason that all that discrimination from things like the police and whatnot, why are there more black people in jail? Why are black communities still so impoverished in this country? Because of the lawmakers. It ain't because there's just a whole bunch of white people at, City Hall sitting around saying, well, we got to keep this black community down. It's not just because of white people. It's because of politicians. You can say the majority of them are white, but it ain't because of the fact that they're white they're doing it. in most cases. Now, there are probably some racist jackasses out there who want to do it over color, but the reason that they're doing it is because they're being bought off to do things like this. Because who they serve are the rich. Are the rich. And their goal is to keep lower class, middle class down the ladder. And it ain't just black, it's all colors. Now, unfortunately, but again, because of legislation passed and what goes on in a lot of these communities, yes, you then see it affect more people of color because of the way those communities are set up. They're more impoverished. And they haven't been able to climb the ladder because the elites and the politicians don't want lower and middle class to climb the ladder. Plus, they've already got the other stigmas that they're talking about that they deal with on a daily basis. So, and what I'm getting at here is, before we turn to a riot, I vote for people beside your problem. Now, I heard the argument Friday night that, well, if they only hear about voting for these two, who else are they going to vote for? Well, again, here's where it becomes a responsibility of the American people. At my lodge meetings, we say this. When we have business meetings and talk about what we're going to do for charity work, and fundraiser stuff that we have coming up, like our golf tournament. Here's what we say to each other. We can sit around and bitch about it, or we can do something about it. Now, if you know that the two parties are screwing you over, and CNN is only going to pump you, or MSNBC or whoever, Fox News, whomever, is only going to talk to you about the two parties, and you know there's a problem, but you do know that third parties exist, then it should be somewhere in your mind that you should want to do some homework and maybe investigate these third party platforms. What do they represent? What do they want to do? And if they got a message that you like, then don't go vote for one of these two corrupt party ass clowns. But the longer you keep doing it over and over, they're going to keep screwing you over and over. It's the definition of insanity to do the same thing time after time and expect different results. So when they're screwing your, communities over, and they're really not helping you, yet they think that they have your vote in the bag, they're going to keep doing this all the time. There's no repercussions for them screwing you over. You come out and vote for them. That's the only time they come around for a lot of these, people of color, or even middle class America in general. It's when they want your damn vote. Pure and simple. So I would say start with what we have the ability to do in this country. Start voting some of these assholes out and voting some outsiders in. Vote some real third-party people in. Maybe we will see a change if we started doing things like that. And again, that's from state-level government all the way up through the federal government. House, Senate, eventually the president. Again, you can't really, as I've said multiple weeks now, you can't start from the top and go down. You need to start from the bottom and go up. So that would be my first suggestion. But the other thing is, as I said at the beginning of this video, know your enemy. So where is the big divide in what we're seeing with a lot of these riots? What's being targeted? You've got a lot of people who try to say you shouldn't go burn up the Target and things like that. And other people are saying it's a store. There's insurance. There's this. There's that. The lives are what's more important. Okay, I agree with you. We need to protect that life, right? We need to protect the life. Know your enemy. If your message is to say we want the unnecessary deaths of our people to stop, your message gets a little lost when you're targeting entities that weren't involved in the killing of those people. So if your problem is with the police, okay, and your problem is with the cops, and you took it up with the police building, okay, you complained about police brutality and unjust, killings by cops. You took it up with the police. We hear you, and we see where your target's at, okay? Likewise, as I just expressed, look what the politicians do. So if you're, throwing rocks at the government building because you're tired of these corrupt ass politicians who won't better your community. Okay, we hear you. You're tired of corrupt politicians hanging you out to dry until it's election time. We understand. Your goal is there. It's visible. We know who you've got a problem with. But when you go burn down the fucking O'Reillys, what did the guy that sold car parts have to do with this? There's only one thing that comes out of that. A store that had nothing to do with this has been burned down, number one, okay? Number two, people who work there now don't have a job because their store's been burned down. And again, your community is starting to lose all these stores some people in there may have needed. And again, the fact that they weren't involved with what these protests are coming from with the George Floyd incident, these people had nothing to do with George Floyd. So your message gets a little lost and convoluted now, doesn't it? Because now, even if this isn't your goal, how are you going to prove to the majority and the rest of America to get behind your cause when all it starts to seem is that you're going out and burning shit up and tearing things up for the sake of doing it? You're not even really focusing on the people who are contributing to the actual problem that takes place with the George Floyds every day. And again, the corrupt politicians, the crooked mainstream media, bought off by the sponsors, and the police out there who let it go to their heads how much of a cop they are. And again, there are plenty of fine men and women out there who just want to honestly serve the communities. There's others who watch a little too much television and movies and think that they're going to be, you know, the next Steven Seagal. Okay? And those are the problems. Those three entities are some of the biggest problems that face people of color today. And CNN don't tell you about it because, again, the way they cover things is part of that problem. So when you attack the CNN center down there in Atlanta, again, okay, I could understand why. They're part of your problem. The way they report on these facts don't actually tell you that it's the two parties who pass legislation that hurt you. The way they cover it, it's just white people and black people, white people and black people, racist, 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 racist. Yes, racism plays a role. But you got to look beyond that. Because it's not every politician is a racist. It's just the fact that their special interests don't really care what the color of your skin is. What they care about is getting richer. And that's holding poor communities down. More for me, less for you. That's the name of that game. That's how it works. So they're going to continue to do things like that. So again, I say this, know your enemy. Your message is going to be lost when you focus on entities that, again, are not even involved with these George Floyds. That doesn't help convince the rest of the country that you're doing this because you're tired of a problem. It starts to look to a lot of people like you're just out there rioting for the sake of rioting. And for a lot of people, I would think that that isn't the case. Sure, there are probably some goofballs out there who think it's all fun and games to go tear a building up. There's others who are just sick and tired of a problem. So again, if you think and you feel that this is the way to go, and I'm not going to speak for, which one, I say that in my opinion, try voting your problem out of office. But if you're not going to start there and you're going to go to riot, then again, I would say we need to look at who's being hit. Know your enemy. Look at revolutions from history and see what was done. The French Revolution, they wanted rid of a monarchy. So what did they do? Did they go and burn each other's houses down to send a message to the king and say, look what we're doing. We're causing a lot of destruction and we want you to leave. Is that how they got, the King Louis the 16th out of his throne? No. They didn't harm each other. They harmed the people they wanted gone. And I'm not calling for violence against cops. But if you're going to burn down a building and your problem was with the cops, it doesn't make any sense to hit the O'Reillys. That's all I'm saying. You're losing the message you're trying to send when you hit the people that weren't involved. Now, what did they do to Louis XVI over in France? Cut his and his wife's head off. They didn't burn each other's houses down. They didn't cut each other's heads off. They went after the king and the people who tried to protect him. That's how the French Revolution went down. How about the American Revolution? We were tired of the British colonization of America. We didn't like that the British and King George III sat across the pond over there and barked orders from on high. And they would raise taxes at a moment's notice. That's where the whole no taxation without representation thing came in from, right? We didn't like it. We wanted to become our own nation, get away from them. How'd we go about doing that? They were taxing tea, right? So did we go to stores that, the people of this country, colonial America basically, did we go to the stores and burn the stores up? No. We had the Boston Tea Party. We threw a lot of tea over in the ocean, but guess what? We attacked the British ships, the British soldiers, and we threw the tea that was British tea over into the ocean. They did not hurt their fellow men, and they did not attack their stores. Know your enemy. If you're going to do an attack the people who are actually part of your problem. The innocent guy selling radiators, he ain't your problem. And we could talk about what kind of jobs Target has and a lot of these other things, but again, did the guy working, in the electronics department of Target do the act, holding his knee on the back of George Floyd's neck, which led to his death because it suffocated him? Did the guy in the electronics department of Target do that? No. So why are you going after them? You can take that violent method and get a point across. But when you start to just hit anything in sight, you don't come across as people with a mission that are wanting to send a message. You look like a lot of unruly people that are just out to tear shit up. Now, for the people who say that having this sort of a revolution is the way to go because that's what's going to get the ear of everyone. If you do it the right way, sure. When you do it this way, you convince at least enough of the country that you're not really helping anything, that when they invoke the National Guard to come in and shut the whole deal the hell down, and they will, there's going to be a lot of people that say, no, we should be heard. But there's also going to be plenty of other people out there in the country who are going to say, no, it's high time someone put a stop to your foolishness. You're going to have the divide because it looks like you're just hitting everything for the sake of hitting it. There's not a clear agenda to go after the entities who are contributing to part of your problem. That's the key thing. So for anyone out there who's tired of it, here's my two ideas. Either vote your problem out of office and stop getting all of your information from CNN and start taking the time to study for yourself and find out what's actually going on out there in the world. And that's not just people, that's everyone. Every American who gives a damn about this country should stop waiting for other people to just tell them what they need to know and do some more homework. Get rid of the apathy and start giving enough of a crap about the country to educate yourself on the facts. You don't have to become the economic expert, but understand what kind of laws are being passed every day that could take your freedoms away or target you. You need to understand these sorts of things. And don't wait for Wolf Blitzer to tell you about it. Don't wait for Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, or Cuomo to tell you about it. Don't wait for Sean Hannity and Fox and Friends, Dana Perino, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Don't wait for these sorts of people to tell you about it. Don't wait for Maddow. Don't wait for Lester Holt. Don't wait for them, because I've got news for you. You can wait, as we say in the South, until the cows come home. They're not going to do it. You need to inform yourself. And if you don't want to take the time to inform yourself about how much the Democratic and the Republican Party are part of your core problem because of the way they've done things for so many years, if you don't want to take the time to inform yourself, then that's at your own choice. You're setting yourself up for more of this stuff to happen if all you're going to do is go out and vote for them every 4 years when they ask you to. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So that's my plea to a lot of people out there. Inform yourself. I would ask we start this at the ballot box. I think that's the more productive way. But even if it's got to turn to the other option, know your enemy. And don't target those who are not part of your problem. Because right now, what I'm starting to see is we're targeting more of the people who are not the problem than you are people who are the problem. And that's where you start to lose a lot of the rest of the country from your cause. I think if a lot of the country could see you've got a focus in mind and you're targeting the problems that actually hurt those communities, spread those false narratives, and pass the laws that hurt us all, people could see that, you might actually get a lot more people that will be supportive of all colors because they realize, yeah, okay, these people are sick and tired of it. You know what? So am I. When it looks like you're hurting people that are just not part of that problem in the first place. They're, just a store sitting in the middle of a town. Somebody's working in there trying to make a living of some sort, and you just burn that store down. Guess what? Again, the people who are part of your problem, the people held up in those political buildings, are sitting back saying, looks like they're pissed off today, huh? Well, maybe we ought to send the SWAT team in. Maybe we ought to get the riot shields out. Go deploy some tear gas while they continue to sip their high-dollar wine. You're not getting anything across to the people who you're trying to. And you're not going to until they become the focus, the real focus of your message. And the way you get that message across and make them the focus is to take what you're doing here and focus it over here where they're actually at. That's the only way you'll get it across. Now you need to understand this too. If you take that route, during all those revolutions, they made sacrifices when they fought those battles. If you think you're going to storm a government building and burn it down like that, ain't going to happen. Not that easily anyway. You get enough people and you might do it. Just know there's probably going to be a lot of death. A lot of death. Because they're going to be shooting, trying to stop you. So, if that's what your goal really is, understand that's the way you get the message across. Also understand, just like every other revolution that's happened in the past, if you're willing to fight for it, you better be willing to die for it too, buddy. Because that's the price you're going to have to pay to get what you want. And if you're not willing to go out and fight for it and die for it, don't go to the streets. Because again, burning these stores down that had nothing to do with it is only going to make a lot of the people in this country. And just for the record, it ain't just all white people who feel that way. I've seen plenty of black people posting on Facebook and other people of color. Black, brown, it doesn't matter. Okay? I've seen a lot of people saying a lot of these same things. Now, they catch hell for it. Some of them have even posted the pictures where people send them messages saying, I hope you get lynched. That's how divided we are on this kind of shit, man. And it's sad. It's really sad. Again, if you want to carry out the revolution, one, if you're going to fight for it, you better be willing to die for it. But two, know your enemy. Don't hurt the innocent people who had nothing to do with what you're pissed off about. Because that doesn't really... You think that gets a message to the people you're trying to speak to on that level by saying, look, this is what we're willing to do. It doesn't. They don't give a damn. Oh, sure, they might go do a press conference and tell you they give a damn. But I promise you, it's not going to send the same message across. It's not. It's not. If you're going to fight for it, you better be willing to die for it. just like every other patriot has in every other nation where they were sick and tired of a system. And if that's not your mindset, don't take up the arms and try to start that revolution. True patriots who want the change have that mindset. And so if you're not there yet, again, I would say start at the ballot box and vote your problem out of office. And stop tuning in to the nightly news who divides us more and more every day. Because again, they're part of the problem. That would be my recommendation. I feel like that's the most peaceful way we can change our system and get some reform, is to vote the jackasses who are the problem out. Just my thought on things. I'll end it with this. These are certainly troubling times that we've got in our country today. And we need change to be done. We need change to be done. These things have to be addressed. Okay, but there's a way to do it. And the one thing that I have to say is, aside from just the George Floyds, you look at the things that are going on with our country today, how divided our country is, and how some of us are just at each other's throats all the time. For everyone out there who can see what I'm seeing in this and see what's going on from the view of the outside lens, being the independent that I am, the very independent thinker that I am, and I don't look through a left or right lens. I look through my own lens and draw my own conclusions on things. I try to remove myself back from that situation, move myself and look at someone who doesn't know anything about, have never heard the propaganda. I try to put myself and just look at it and say, what would I see if I were looking at it without any biases at all? And that's what I try to do with situations. And so, for the people who are out there who think like that and can see what's going on, can see how this entire thing is really dividing more and more people farther apart, do what we can to help inform more people. But, I hope a lot of people out there would join me in saying a prayer for our country. Because at the end of the day, I love America. I love the country. I want to see our country succeed, and I want to see our country do better, improve upon our problems, and grow upon our strengths. Okay? Grow upon the things that make us great and fix the things that need to be fixed. That's what I want to see this country do. And unfortunately, with the way the politicians are doing things, the way the mainstream media is covering things, and the way people just become more and more divided at each other's throats because they keep listening to these same people who are the problem, this country really needs a prayer right now. It really does. And hopefully the American people will wake up in one way or another and realize we either need to vote them out of office, or, again, if it comes to a revolution, maybe they'll figure out who the problem really is and target them. And then we can get them out of office. Again, I would advocate starting at the ballot box. I don't think turning to the violence is the best course of action, but I understand why some people do, because they're tired of it. And eventually that's what happens when you push a society's buttons to their breaking point. They're going to fight. And I think that if it comes to that, for the sake of the people who had nothing to do with the problem, I hope that, if this kind of thing continues, people will figure out who the problem really is and focus on that, instead of people who are just out there trying to make a living in the country and are not contributing to the tragedies that happen to the George Floyds all around the country. So, again, I hope everyone will join me and say a prayer for our country, that we will pull through this and become a better, more informed society and fix these problems at the end of the day.